Right, let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the Just Discourse Podcast, brought to you by Harpe and Max Smith. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we can keep generating these for you lovely people. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you, my friend. How are you?
All good, all good. How's your day?
Yeah, it's been busy. Another busy day, which is good.
Always good.
Getting that money in, getting
Lovely.
those units out. Trying to get to where we need to be, eh?
That's what I like to see.
How about you?
Yeah, it's been good. Day off today, so it's been working similar to yourself, but just sort of building a pipeline in other areas myself. So
Exactly.
yeah, likewise busy, which is good.
So when is it, remind me, that we are, or you are, kicking off with the new venture?
End of May.
End of May. That'll be exciting. Then.
Absolutely.
And we can have a bit of time off between.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice, very nice. Well, let's get straight into it.
Let's do it.
So tell me, this week, what book have you been reading?
Well, it's less a book. It's more of a interview I was listening to with Bjorn Lomborg, who's he's either Swiss or Swish. He's very Swish. He's a Swiss
Love a Swish.
or a Swiss or Swedish, and he's a gentleman who's an expert in what's that, like global warming or climate science or whatever.
Well, so if I don't know if you noticed, it used to be global warming,
I know.
but now it's climate change.
Yes,
And I
because
think
it's
it's
not
just-
just warming.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's
it was global warming when the planet was warming,
Yeah.
but that science has, fallen flat on its face, hasn't it? So it's now climate change.
Which change is inevitable and is part of the ecosystem. So
That's been happening for millions of years.
well, it's the second interview I'd heard of him from him, and it's basically saying how climate change is real.
Mhm.
We are contributing to it. It's important that we need to do something about it, but it's not the end of the world,
Mhm.
and it's not the catastrophe that we've been told about, which I didn't realise. Obviously, being a 90s born myself, I didn't realise that they've been talking about this since 72.
Really?
In 90s, you were saying that in 72 that they were told that by 2000 the world was going to be kaput.
Oh, really? So I thought it was a 90s thing.
That's what I thought. I thought it was 2000s. Well, no, Al Gore. So the inconvenient truth. I thought it was Al Gore. But yeah, it was fascinating. It's obviously it's a very nuanced topic, but the fact that
Many different variables.
it's fascinating when you actually listen to. So I listened to different scientists say that, oh, this is very, very serious, and some being like, it's serious, but it's not the end of the world. But it's fascinating that it's something that should just be objective fact,
Mm-hmm.
but has somehow been made into a polarized debate.
Mm.
Where it's like, you're an idiot if you think we're going to die from it, but equally you hate the planet if you think we shouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? This shouldn't be a polarizing issue. This should just be like, here are the facts.
Let's do this.
And the fact that it is a polarizing issue, like we're arguing over the state of reality
Mm.
on our planet ourselves. It's like it's
quite worrying, really.
It's an absurd thing that
Yeah.
there's this has been created in a way that there's sides to be picked for it.
Mm. Well, if you notice, especially with all that type of politics, is they always come up with the subject or whatever the subject is, and they'd always just have to have this ongoing battle for years and years and years from both sides, rather than it just being, right, this is what we need to do. This is the cause and effect. Bam. Let's take these steps to get it sorted.
Because it seems like just another tool that has been used by the media and governments and politicians to
Fear and control.
fear and control as a main distraction tool. Because when the main point that Bjorn was talking about is that the places that are generating the most pollutants and the most negative chemicals to the environment are the
China.
ones, not just China, but the ones that are lower economical on the status, where there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of people, because you have to have a big families for everyone to then support each other, which then means you produce more negative pollutants. So then you have more plastics, more products, more everything, because there's more people going up.
Mhm.
So it's the old adage of, like if you're working on a farm, you're going to have a big family because you need people to work on the farm, and then you come to a more economically developed place where there's more tertiary and quaternary services, what the main ecosystem is. So then you have less people because you don't need the people for the physical bodies, for the services, and so on and so on. But he's saying that
Just touching on that point, sorry. If you're on a farm, surely that's obviously there's going to be some type of pollutants from it, but is that not the most ecological way to live?
Yes, but that's not my point. My point is just the sheer number of people. But yes, we can come back to that. He was saying that the people in a more impoverished nations or areas, they don't care about pollutants.
Well, no, because they're more worried about where the next meal's coming
Exactly. Heating and food and clothing is hard to come by. So it's much more important for them to focus on that rather than, will this affect me or my neighbours or my friends and family a year down the line, 10 years down the line? They're not even considering that because the here and now is such a struggle that they can't think that far ahead.
Do you think that's why the West have got hold of it and, used it so, not necessarily used it so much, but it's more of a larger subject from our point of view, just because we have the luxury of being able to speak about it, or the luxury of being able to do something about it?
Certainly, it's added to the list of luxury beliefs that we are able to have, worrying about the climate being one of them, along with other things that we've mentioned ad nauseum on this podcast here. But he was saying that if you were to raise people out of poverty, then you can have them the ability and the opportunity to then address things that us in the West or Tokyo, like Japan, for example, South Korea, Australia, they are all an ability over there to focus on because of their wealth and their advanced technology and
you've got more abundance and control over
level of education and all that
other aspects of your life.
But his point which was fascinating when he actually broke it down by numbers, because he's like, I can approach this from whatever perspective you want, whether it be a humanitarian perspective, because you're looking at in these areas where there's not enough sort of funding going in or not enough money or attention, then you're losing lives because of that. Let's take childbirth itself. This engineering's really hit me, so my heart rate's like this. So I'm trying to stay.
Calm down. So those death cans will do it too.
Oh mate, it's just crazy. I'm like, here we go. So if we were to invest in those areas, we can take it from the perspective of saving lives for the mothers giving birth or the kids, or if you want to take it from a purely economical perspective, if you were to look at, if you were to invest, it was something like if you invest, it was $1 million, for example, $1 million in X, or that one of his solutions was. By doing that now, that would generate 46 million in 10 years' time, because it would have raised the education level of the children that way, and then they would then be more advanced and more prolific in their whatever enterprise they chose to do.
They're more conscious of the world around them and what direction they should be pushing forward to.
Well, it was the point that you and I touched on before about the education system in general. His example and his point was, if you have a classroom of 30 kids, 40 kids, and the one teacher that's got to handle all those kids, none of them are going to be at the same level. You're going to have majority are going to sit below. Half of them will probably sit below the average. The rest will sit above it, and then it won't even out. You won't get an even distribution there. But he was saying that if you give them the autonomy to have their own personal tablet throughout that, then they can learn at the rate that works for them. And he says in the areas where they've studied this, they get a triple return on education, so that they improve 3 times more and 3 times faster than they would for something else. And he was saying this is fairly inexpensive for the result that you're going to get from it. His example was like 46 dollars you had to invest per child, and you would get 3 times education.
And do you think that's because the children in that situation aren't worried about trying to keep up with their classmates? They're more worried about, their thoughts are more on actually improving and learning the stuff, rather than thinking, how am I going to keep up with this?
It's definitely an aspect, and there's the autonomy as well of you want to learn things that you're genuinely interested in. So obviously if you were given a tablet with the access to the internet with certain parameters in place and certain restrictions, you can learn anything you want. So if you've got one kid who loves sports, or one kid who loves rocks, or one kid who loves maths, then they can each, at their own pace, their own style, with the learning tools available for them. And he was like, these are proven examples that work. And I was like, that is so interesting that you can do that. And just sort of, because we've all had, growing up in secondary schools, we have those classrooms, we have those truant kids or the quiet kids or whatever.
Mhm.
It's because every kid's different.
Yeah, and they've got nothing, or there's nothing they see that really interests them, so their mind's on other things.
It was really, really interesting. That was absolutely fascinating interview to listen to, because he was just coming up with all these ways of how we can, like, take climate change for example. He said the main push that we're all throwing in our face with everything are far-fetched goals that we're not going to see the impacts of now. He said if you look at the last conclave of nations coming together and decided what things they need to do, each nation brought like 3 or 4 things that need to happen. So by the end of it, you've got 169 things that need to be done on the list, which is ridiculous.
No, you're going to get through them all.
But he was saying that you don't need to do that. We choose things that are inexpensive and easy to do now, inexpensive in the long run. And he said, what was his one? He said if every suggestion he's come up with, which I think is about 12, he said it should cost about 12 billion to do throughout all of these countries. And he said, compare that to what the globe spends on cosmetics a year. That's 3 times the amount of what I proposed. That should be easy to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's talking so much sense.
And a lot of it is quite simple, of the things that we need to be doing. But again, I think it all gets lost in the politics of everything that is happening, isn't it? And the constant back and forth rhetoric between one another. You shouldn't be doing this, blah 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 blah. And then again, it gets confusing for people, doesn't it? Because they think, well, what direction should I go in? Well,
it's as with everything, it's manipulated and used as a political football to be thrown around.
Exactly, yeah. And you're just sort of stuck in the middle, like, come on, guys, like, what's going on here? Give me some type of direction. You never get any. What was that called again?
His name is Bjorn Lomborg, BJornLomborg.
And that was a podcast, was it?
Yeah, so that was the one with Chris Williamson, which came out 2 days ago. And I've heard him before on Rogan about a month ago.
Excellent, I'll get that down. It might be worth, we'll put the link in the bottom, shall we? In the description.
For sure, yeah, good idea.
So listeners can have a go as well.
Yeah, Williamson has some absurd guests on. He's just smashed them out of it. He's got the the next one on the list is the Gymshark founder.
Right, okay, yeah, because he's quite young, isn't he? I think he's younger than you.
Yeah, same age as me, something like that.
Yeah. And I think he just started randomly, didn't he? I think it was Amazon or something like that.
It was, I don't know.
Well, I think it was Instagram. He just started selling on Instagram.
I wonder, I don't know the story at all.
And then it just blew up, and then he just started giving it to all the influencers, gym influencers and stuff like that. I haven't read too much on it, but that's the background story I've heard.
Very interesting.
And it was I think he was one of the first, of those big Instagram entrepreneurs where they sort of blow up from nothing. And it just, obviously it took off for him, which is really nice to see, isn't it? Things like that. Especially when most social media these days is laughing at stupid little videos.
Yeah, I know. Who puts stupid videos out there, eh?
Exactly, who does that?
I think we get a artistic license because these are extracts from this very good, important sociological work we do here.
Exactly.
Not just cat videos.
Yeah, exactly. We can put some cat videos up. We might get more views, to be fair.
We might do. Maybe we need a cat as a mascot or something,
Well, I was thinking about bringing Reggie in for one. I'm sure
he'd be the guest.
Views. Yeah. He'd just sit there and be a pain in the ass. But it'd be worth it.
Nah, it would work. It definitely would work.
We get through it.
Good conversationalist, I'm sure.
Yeah, he loves a good bark.
Yeah. What about yourself, mate? What have you been listening to recently or consuming or anything interesting?
So I started today listening to the audiobooks. I did quite a bit of driving today on the Daily Stoic.
Right on holiday?
I believe so.
Yep.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically like, or it might have been Stoic Principles. I've got both of them.
Yep.
And I haven't listened to one or the other, but I started listening to that, and I think it gives you like 12, daily Stoic Principles. Now, I'm not that far through yet, if I'm honest.
What was the first one you got?
That's what my point. Yes, I can't really remember. So I got through the introduction and all that type of stuff, and then I was just taking phone call after phone call.
Fair play, mate.
Didn't manage to get through it. But it seems, especially with all things like that, it's always nice to recap on various different things, just to keep your mind in the right mind frame. Can you use that?
Yeah.
Yeah, mind in the right mind frame.
Yeah.
In the frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure we're pushing forward, going out every day, getting up, moving, progressing, going up those steps, those theoretical steps in our minds to achieve the goals.
It's like you and I said the other day, is if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Exactly, yeah, which is, like I said in the previous one, it's mad when I first heard that. It's like, some days you want to just be like, oh no, fuck this day, let it go. But especially that, always brings my mind back to it. And it's like, look, you can if you want. You can throw the day away and fail it, but you will be going backwards. And then tomorrow you got to go up. You've gone 2 steps back. Now you got to go 5 steps to get what 3 steps would cost you today. So it's a powerful concept, shall we say?
Well, it's all part of the journey as well. Is that there's a nuance to everything. Part of it is the adage we just said. The other part is that it's all part of the journey to have the lows from it. It's like I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, everything I touch seems to go wrong, and I just can't seem to do anything right." And I said, "Look, it's," and they were getting really upset about it. I said, "Look, you can acknowledge that whatever's going on right now is a negative feeling." But equally, acknowledge that, validate the fact that you feel that way you feel, because you do feel that way. Let's not even bother trying to figure out why that is. Whilst acknowledging that is how you feel, also know that it'll probably change in a bit.
Yeah.
And it'll probably change maybe in a couple of hours, maybe by tomorrow. But just give yourself a bit of a break in that respect. Don't beat yourself up about it before feeling like you're a failure, feeling like you're messing everything up and get upset about it. Do that. Embrace it. Feel like you suck. Feel like you're a failure. Have a cry in the corner. You'll probably feel better after the cry. And then you'll be like, all right, cool. Now my mood has changed. And let's carry on with what I was doing.
Just don't let anyone see you, you little bitch. And then pull yourself up and move on.
Look, it's like sometimes it's okay to be a bitch. Have that moment and then be like, okay, you had the bitch. Now get on with it.
And that's what the small part of the audiobook I have listened to, it was effectively saying that every situation only has meaning or feeling based on our own beliefs. So, any situation that happens to you is only positive or negative based on what you either believe or what kind of mindset you're in. If you care about it in a positive or negative way, whichever, you're going to get that feeling on the flip side. But if you don't, like I think the example they use is, if someone throws an insult at you and you don't care about it, literally doesn't matter, doesn't affect your day, you move on. But if someone throws an insult at you and you get really offended, it's like, oh, can't believe he did that. And then you go on that downward spiral of the negative thought patterns. And I think there's probably an element as if you believe that, and again it brings the belief back into it. So if you believe what they say, whatever it is, that has the the emotional effect on you because of it.
So with you getting offended by someone who you perceive has insulted you, is that because they've hit on something that is a secret fear of yours? You're like, oh my god, they hit that exact thing I'm scared of. Or do you reckon it's like you're not actually pissed off with them, it's just a manifestation of something else that you're not dealing with, and this is just a good outlet for it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different variables there. It could be the first one you touched on, that they've said something to you and you actually you feel that way too, and they've just brought it out. You've been trying to ignore it or avoid it, or whatever the situation is, they've thrown it at you and it's really hurt you, because you're like, well, I feel the same way too. But instead of turning around, and which a lot of people don't do, but it is the required route, is, they say that, oh yeah, well, I feel the same way, right, I'm going to do this, this and this to overcome that or to change that in my life, rather than having the emotional reaction, which usually is projecting your inside battle with yourself onto the person who's effectively put the mirror up to you. So they put the mirror up, and instead of reacting in the way you should, you just attack them for either forcing you to think about it or forcing you to come to a point where you're like, it's seriously affecting me because I'm not doing it or whatever, or even if it's even that in depth, or whether they're even conscious that they're, projecting it onto the other people as a reaction because they're so offended or whatever by it.
This exact scenario reminds me of a Limp Bizkit song lyric.
Go on.
They've got a song called The Truth, part of an album called The Unquestionable Truth. And the chorus goes, imagine the insult as a blessing, imagine accepting the truth. And it's such a good song. Like, it is, it's classic Limp Bizkit. It is heavy, but I was like, those words always stuck with me. I was like, imagine that. Take it as obviously the example being it's an insult, or the painful part of it. Imagine it's a blessing. Imagine accepting the truth.
No, I was going to say that thankfully I don't really get insulted that often these days, but as I was going through that thought process, I was thinking, well, maybe I do get insulted, or people are trying to insult me, but because I'm not going to react emotionally from it, it either bounces off because I'm like, who's this dickhead? Like, what's he talking about? Or it's like, oh, okay, it's more motivation, if you know what I mean. So they say it, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I do need to change that, or move that around, or adapt the way I do things based on that.
Or you have the Michael Jordan mentality, where you go, okay, April 26th, 4 p.m, Max called me a cunt. And then 10 years later, be like, you call me a cunt? I got 10 million. Fuck you.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so crucial. We talk about it ad nauseum, about goals and looking forward to the future of what we want. And I think if you've got various things in place, like your roadmap to your journey, minor things like that, it's not even going to even cross your mind to get offended by or even really care, if you know what I mean. Whereas there's probably quite a few people out there that haven't got strict goals, habits, and good daily, what's what I'm looking for?
Well, it's
daily activity.
Yes, it's an activity and a self belief and knowing who you are as a person.
Yeah. And if you haven't got those things, then obviously when people say ridiculous things, you are gonna, or you're likely to sort of not, instead of taking it on the chin, get really hurt by it.
It's the Napoleon complex kind of thing. It's that if you feel unfulfilled, you are going prone to lash out or overcompensate or take things to heart or...
That's the Napoleon what's it called?
The Napoleon complex, yeah.
Complex.
You don't have...
Oh, because he was notorious for lashing out.
Oh, his... It's actually badly named because he took his diminutive size and to overcompensate for that, conquered a shit ton of places. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of badly named. But if someone doesn't have personal sovereignty, if you don't have that, then an insult is going to feel like a personal attack, or this entire proliferation of being virtuous by being offended by stuff. Everyone who is propagating that has little or no personal sovereignty. You don't know who you are as a person if you are taking extrinsic value from something that doesn't actually apply to you.
Yeah, exactly.
If
you get tripped up so easily by something that's so irrelevant.
Yeah, or the overuse of the word triggered, or if you're getting offended on behalf of someone else. It's like that's my favourite thing, people getting triggered. I refuse to see the new Matrix film purely on the basis of hearing that word in the trailer, and just went, nope.
I've seen the new Matrix film.
I was like, I'm having no part of this.
And I actually started watching it with the old man, or he was in the room while I was watching it. And about half an hour in, he was like, what is going on in this film? I don't understand. I said, Dad, I've seen the first 3 films.
Yeah.
And I'm confused as shit about what's going on right now. It explains itself in the end, but at first you're like, what is happening?
So I originally thought it was just a resurgence because everything was being resurged. I was like, this is just lazy. But Jamie, who's a film nut,
Definitely worth a watch.
well, Jamie was explaining to me that the Wachowski brothers, only one of them did it. 'Cause the other one, I thought they had a falling out. He was like, no, the other one just refused to do it because the studio had forced them to do it. And so the one that did do it went, right, fuck you, I'm going to make this as weird and shit as possible and waste your money.
I see.
So he did it on purpose to fuck with the studio.
Yeah. It's definitely not as good as the first 3.
I mean, the first, yeah.
And it was a bit like, when I got to the end of it, I was like, right, kind of... I know there was a storyline there, but there was no real point to it. You know, the first 3, they've got, you know, the beginning, middle, and end, like, type thing, obviously, because that's how everything starts. But, you know, there was some congruency about what was going on. The fourth one was just sort of like, this is just made up. I know the whole thing's made up. But like, it literally...
It's not a documentary?
No.
Ah.
Well, you could argue. You could argue it might be a documentary from the future.
Well, it's an analogy for life in certain ways,
exactly, yeah. 100%. It's more analogies. But going back to the point is that I was speaking to a close friend very recently, and it was saying, or I was sort of saying, I can't remember where I read it, but it was effectively that, you know, when minor situations happen and some people just absolutely lose it, and then they start having a go. You like let's use road rage for an example. Get it all the time. Like the most minor thing will happen, or someone won't let you go, or whatever like that, and you'll pull in, and then they'll start going absolutely mental at you. And obviously, when I was younger, it used to get me really annoyed because I'm like, who are you, dickhead? Like, why are you going absolutely mental at me? Blah, 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 for whatever reason. And then I read that most of the people that react negatively like that, they're either going through something like traumatic, or they are, you know, there's something really wrong in their lives, or, you know, they're mentally unstable, again, for whatever various reason. And as soon as I read that, I thought it changed my perspective on those situations to the point now where, like, when people do react like that, rightly or wrongly, I immediately feel sorry for them, which in certain situations is, I think it's always the right reaction to have. You feel sorry for them because you're like, fuck, you're obviously going through something to react so negatively on something that's such a minor. But as I say, rightly or wrongly, you've got to try and let it go. And sometimes, you know, people are going to act like dickheads towards you, and sometimes you walk away and you think, oh no, I shouldn't have taken that, or whatever. But yeah, when there's no point me ruining my, what's the word, my frame of mind or my emotional state based on a negative reaction from you, because I'll still walk away from the situation and be like, I'm not very pleased with how I acted there. And that's all you can do at the end of the day, isn't it? Is you can't control what other people do in their reactions. You can only control what you do in your reactions. If you walk away from a situation happy, knowing you did the best you could based on whatever situations happened to you, that's all you can really do, isn't it?
There's something said for ego there, particularly with road rage or just people chatting shit. It's
I think that's mostly what it is.
Yeah, because that there is just a bruised ego for you. It's like, from your perspective, you've perceived an injustice against you for how they're reacting to you. So your ego is like, oh no, I'm in the right. I'm going to stand up and say something. But it's like, what do you gain from that?
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not going to gain anything, what's the point?
Yeah, there's no point in anything. But it's hard for some people to learn that. But that comes back to the personal sovereignty. If you know,
if you're secure in who you are.
Yeah, and it's like if you particularly if you were to exercise routinely, you get that release of that energy.
Yeah, and the dopamine.
Yeah, which is a kind of a natural high it keeps you at. If you've done a hard workout and then you get into something like road rage where someone's angry at you, you're there like peace and zen. You're like, it's cool, man. Whatever you need to do, or you'll just ignore it, or you'll smile and wave. Also making sure you lock all the doors.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get out of the car. You're not going to swear at them. You're not going to do anything. You just let them burn out. Don't react, and off they go. But imagine if the day starts off and you know, you slept through your alarm, so you're now late, and then you get up and the car doesn't work, so you have to take someone else's car, and then you find out, oh shit, no, I've got this bill that is due, or you know, I've been locked out of my account, or I've got credit card fraud, or someone's stolen my identity, I've lost my phone, I can't find this, I can't find that. Someone cuts you off on the lights, that's going to be the final straw, even like before even 8:30 in the morning, and you're going to start screaming and yelling and stuff. Like, I remember one time, estate agency days, Friday evening, last viewing of the day, 5:30, Cemetery Junction. I come out right at the bridge before TVP. I turn right and onto London Road, straight into gridlock. Because what happened is it was pouring down and it was raining so hard that there'd been an accident on the M4, so I diverted all the M4 traffic through Reading to get it must be 2.5 miles from there to the car park. Took me an hour and 45 minutes.
Jesus Christ. I bet you're fuming.
So I went down London Road, got to a certain point, and then went, it's not working. So I went, okay, let's try the back road. So I went up, past the hospital, through the little back bits, past the uni, up through here. Again, all of these cars had just come flooding through up the A33, all the back roads up past the uni. Everyone's come through here because they've just been diverted here because they can't go through the motorway. And it's pouring down with rain, like it's a full-on hurricane amount of water. And I remember about an hour in and just stopping, turning everything off and just screaming because I was so frustrated. Like, I wasn't screaming at anyone, I was just screaming in my car. And then after I was like, okay, calm down. So I was like, okay, fine. I was like, it is what it is, just take it a step at a time. But I was like, that was so, if there had been someone, like another driver had like beeped at me or something, or got out of the car or something, I
would have lost it.
Can't promise I would not have got out of the car as well. I was just like
and the problem again with that mentality is, once you work yourself up into that frenzy of frustration, is it can take a good hour, 2 hours after you've removed yourself from that situation to actually properly calm down.
Yep.
And I use the example of, and I call it the employee mentality, because that's exactly what I was thinking at the time and what was going on. You know, you finish work when I was in a estate agency at 6:30, and well, in a estate agency, when do people finish work? Usually finish work at 5, get home at 5:30, do whatever they need to do. Then they start calling, don't they? They start calling, looking for houses and all that type of stuff. So it's sort of prime time. And I used to get really frustrated thinking, well, I'm leaving at 6:30. That's when I'm paid to, although we're on commissions, it's slightly different. But you'd be like, well, I'm going at 6:30. Like that's when my time is over, type of thing. And then it would wind me up so much to the point where I'd be like doing everything I can to get out, and it would be often, because I was so stressed about finishing bang on time, I would make more mistakes, or I would do this, would actually create more work, which would make me work longer, etc, etc, etc. And then you're so stressed about finishing bang on time, when you leave for the next hour and a half, 2 hours when you left work, you're like so stressed and pissed off about, you know, something that's, let's be honest, really ridiculous. Like what? And I said to myself, I said, look, right, after I sort of became conscious of that situation, I said, look, Max, you're going to stay an extra half an hour after your finishing time, no matter what, okay, to get all of the work you need to do done. Once you've done the work, cool, absolutely fine, go home. As soon as I switched my mindset to that, I'm not joking you, the latest I left was like 15 minutes after work. Most of the time it was like 5 minutes, like, you know, and you never really noticed it. And it was interesting for me to see how when you take that element out and you stop the stress, or, you know, you put yourself under this theoretical timestamp that you're trying to work towards, how little I ever overran, managed to get everything done, etc, etc. And I think that's a skill I learnt and brought that onto, you know, or transferred that to various other things in my life. And then once you are conscious of that, it's like time. Unless you have to be somewhere that you've got to be out for, you need to manage your time. But if it's like a day where you've got to be finished, then throughout the day you just have to manage your time better, don't you, and get it done earlier.
So that's like as a prime example of Parkinson's law. So it's like, this is the time you've allocated yourself. You get done what you need to there within that time frame. But it's also a bit more nuanced, because you're absolutely right about changing your mentality of like, oh, I'm here until this time, and then not a second over, and anyone or anything that keeps me here longer than that is going to get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's just like, this is the time that I'm going to finish here, and then I have another set time, any loose ends, as it were. And it kind of alleviates the stress a little bit, because you're still. I think that's why it's a nuanced Parkinson's, because it keeps that time scale as a parameter for you to stick within. But equally, you allow yourself a little caveat at the end. And as you say, if you allow that, you're not going to stress as much if you run over a little bit, because you're like, oh, I allowed myself that time anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world. Like, let's be honest, we live in a relatively easy. We live relatively easy lives in the West, especially in the UK, and it's not like, I didn't have any children or anything like that I needed to like pick up from school or any of those things. So really, I was getting stressed out about going home, so I could sit at home and not do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what am I really allowing myself to work myself up into a frenzy for? Nothing. Oh, just stop doing that then.
Well, but also to your point, it's like, if you've got something specifically planned, then you're like, okay, then I do need to be ready by this point. And then maybe at that point, it's the case of, oh, I actually need to have everything done 10 minutes early. So then that's the...
Yeah, you've got the caveat there.
That's the caveat, those last 10 minutes, yeah. If you get everything wrapped up at quarter past 6, and then you're like, cool, then I've got 15 minutes grace period, and I can just chill at this point.
Yeah, to get it all done.
Yeah.
And as I said, yeah, the stress/reward ratio was ridiculous, because you'd end up doing something or saying something in a certain way, or your boss would say something, and you'd be like, you'd either give them a look or be like, probably react negatively about something which is so minor, and it's like, is it really worth it? Like, for the extra 5-10 minutes, you could lose your job. So maybe let's just chill out a little bit and kind of respect the process and the fact that I've got a job. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's which a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to have.
It's funny you say that as an example of you could lose your job.
So I did it sometimes. Like, the boss would come in or something and be like, right, I need you to do this, and I'll be like, and you're not going to turn around and go, no, I'm not doing that. But you're sort of like, what's the word?
You'd be resentful of it.
Yeah, you're sort of resenting the fact he's asking, and at the end of the day, you walk away and you think, oh well, he does sort of pay my wages and employ me and let me get away with things every now and again that he probably shouldn't do. So maybe I'll just give him that extra 10-15 minutes. Like, it's really not the end of the world, is it?
Yeah, it's very true. And maybe, in this particular case, maybe I do actually, what he's actually saying now is an irritant, but in the long term it's going to work out better for me.
Exactly. It's when I shifted my mindset from the short, which I think that was probably the shift, the short-term mindset to the long-term mindset is costing me 5-10 minutes every day really going to have a negative effect? Well, let's think about it. Well, the boss is actually probably going to think, oh, well, he stays late every day when he doesn't need to. And just silly little things like that. Do you know what I mean? They'd, say they left bang on time. Well, if they saw that I was still there 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, whatever it was, that's only going to have a reinforcing positive effect on their thoughts for me when it comes to pay rises. Then you think, oh, hang on, he's not desperate to get out the door bang on time, or packing up 10 minutes before he goes. He's keen and committed. Do you know what I mean? To stay a bit later and get the job done. Yeah, for sure. So it's going to work more favourably in my favour when it comes to those types of things. And immediately I saw a difference as soon as I stopped thinking like that. To the point where in my next review, he pretty much said to the day where I started doing that, he's like, well, since February or whatever the day was, he was like, I've seen a noticeable change in your attitude, blah blah blah. And it's all down to your attitude, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you're working for someone else, or that they need to be confident that they could leave you in control of their business when they're not there, to the point where, you know, if a manager role comes up or something like that, I've already shown them that I've got the ability, you know, the capability to slide into that role. Whereas if I'm always going early, or, you know, trying to do everything I can not to do the work, when that role comes available, they're not going to be thinking, oh, Max will slot into there. They'll be thinking, shit, we need to find someone else. And again, they could end up pushing you out as well. So it's all about the long term. Now, for myself, I think probably too far into the long term. Quite often, I think we've had this conversation before, haven't we? Where, you know, I'm always thinking 5-10 years ahead, to the point where I lose out a lot of the enjoyment from the present. But I don't really see it as a negative. Like, I've had the conversations with people before, and they'll say it to me, and I say, oh, you know, you're not enjoying the present moment as you should do. And you know, I have stepped back and thought, you know, I agree with that. You know, maybe I'm not enjoying the small little milestones as much as I should do. But I think it's because I'm far too focused on the goal, or, you know, that next step or whatever, to, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, more just to really enjoy those little achievements that get you there. And as we said before, it's the journey, not the end, that is where you really get the enjoyment from, and you get the learning.
Because of your overarching long-term view and the principle of how you're looking at everything, is it more beneficial for you to try and change your thinking so that you appreciate the smaller steps and goals you achieve as you go along, or if you were to just appreciate the time that you're having now with the select people socially as opposed to business? So if you keep your mentality exactly the same with business and projection and what you want to achieve for your life, but so don't worry about the little hurdles and appreciating the moment within that respect, because you have this long-term view, maybe that is the wrong mentality to have, to enjoy the little bit now. Maybe it's you should enjoy the present now outside of business, in the social side of it, so whether it's with your good lady, whether it's, you know, seeing music, whether it's spending time with your family, whether it's walking the dog, whether it's spending you and me going to the gym.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way to look at it. Maybe if you keep what you have in the business perspective, maybe ask yourself, maybe I should just enjoy the other stuff presently now.
And that's what I've been working on a lot recently, especially over the last sort of 6 months, is, you know, when there's again, we've got to play Uno. But yeah, over the last 6 months, you know, and again, when I started the business, of course I was working, you know, I was getting up at 4 a.m. I was working till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night every day for 18 months. And I think I got too much into that routine that I neglected everything else. And then when I got to a position sort of 3 years in, or whatever it was, you know, say 6 months ago, I became conscious of it. And I thought, wow, you know, I've got everything focused on one thing, which is probably having a negative impact on my health, because I wasn't going to the gym, I wasn't eating healthily. It's having a negative impact on my friends and family, because I was not going, you know, wasn't going out massively socially, because I was too busy thinking about, you know, that goal, and, you know, expected everybody else to understand what I was doing, rather than like understand that I couldn't see them because I was working. But obviously people aren't going to see it like that, are they? They're going to see, but in reality, it had the opposite effect, where people were thinking, oh, well, I don't know this, I can only theorise, but they think, oh, he's avoided me for whatever reason. And it's definitely, you got to have balance, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
And that was what, again, in the introduction for this Daily Stoics, that was one of the things is, was it Marcus Aurelius that said, I can't remember the quote, but it was effectively saying that you can't have everything in moderation.
Including moderation.
Yeah, including moderation. Because if you have too many aspects, or just one sole focus, i.e., my example was business, then obviously I neglected the other 6 factions in life. Family, friends, health, exercise, and the rest time.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be flexible with those things, and especially with my time management, that's what I've learned is that I've got to specifically, again, you're not always going to keep to those times, but you've got to specifically set out different times or blocks where, like, I'm going to be doing this. For example, working out in the mornings, so I'm going to be working out during this time. Make sure I move everything around so that I know in the mornings I can do a workout then. It's not always going to be possible because obviously there's various different aspects in life that are going to change or come in the way. So as long as when you get those out of the way, you come back to it, and having the daily structure really helped in that. And so I have like a daily structure, a weekly structure, monthly structure, and like a yearly structure, and it helps. That massively helps with goals as well, because you can properly break down what the little fractions of the goals that you're trying to achieve, as well as make sure you've got time for your friends, family, your dog, like all those types of things, and fitness as well. But we need to, speaking on that, we need to do the Tough Mudder again, don't we?
Yes.
Because that's like 3 things in one, isn't it? Enjoyment, social, and fitness.
Yeah, and it's like finding your pushes you absolutely outside of your comfort zone as well.
Yeah.
Whether it be mud, climbing ropes, swinging on kettlebells, Atlas stones. Atlas stones will fuck you up.
What's Atlas stones?
An Atlas stone is a giant.
Oh, Atlas stones. What, like,
Yeah.
you've got to lift like in strongman?
Yeah, that shit's good.
Not sure about that.
Well, we're doing a Spartan race, particularly after Spartan race.
That's what I meant. Sorry, Spartan, not Tough Mudder. But they're similar things.
Well, Spartan race bought Tough Mudder
Did they?
the year before the pandemic. Yeah,
Good.
And
so
then,
I haven't done a Tough Mudder, but I did Spartan, and I really enjoyed Spartan.
Mhm.
And it's it's to the point when you're first going through all the muddy bits, you're like, oh, I'm trying not to get muddy here, blah 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 blah, and then you go to like the big, like the troughs,
and you have no choice.
and I had no, and that's when I just went, I said, you know what, we're gonna get
Yep.
muddy as fuck. I'm just
Yep.
gonna jump straight in and just get through it.
Yeah, I absolutely bloody love it. For anyone who hasn't done a Spartan race, you are 100% sure, 100% should.
Yeah.
It's all different levels. You can start off light. You can do like a stadium one, which is dry. There's no mud. It's like 3K.
Boring.
Or you get a 5K one and goes all the way up to 50.
Yeah, so I think the one I did was 14K.
So you would have done the super.
Yes, I'm sure there was 3 when
Sprint,
I started.
super beast.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did the super. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was great fun. That was like an adult's assault course.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I'd never done, when I was younger at school, I did like cross country and stuff like that. But I've never even done a 10K.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's split up there, isn't it? So between over the 14K, you're every kilometre or something like that, or even less than that,
Mm-hmm.
you have like an obstacle or an assault course.
So it depends how you do it. Like the number of obstacles you get increases with the size of the race and how long the race is itself. But like when for the sprint, which is the starting one, you spend more time queuing for the obstacles rather than running. But
For the sprint.
Yeah, for the sprint, because it's only 5K, and you got 15 obstacles. But when you get to like the beast, it's you have these massive chunks of just like an hour between obstacles, and you're just like.
I can imagine there's a lot less people that enter into that.
No, it's about the same actually.
Is it?
You just don't notice because it's so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's enormous. Like the 2 beasts I've done each time took like 5 hours.
Really?
Yeah, takes absolutely bloody ages,
Fair
but
play.
it's so much fun. It's so great.
Yeah, I bet. I think the next one's coming up, isn't it? Or have we already missed it?
I think it is next month, but that's just because of things going on. That's not going to work. But they'll have them through September, October, so we 100% will get those done September, October time.
Because they're a great little achievement when you get to the end as well, aren't they?
They're great. You get a medal. You get all these tables laid out. You can just help yourself to a goodie bag of pretty much whatever the hell you want. You'll get a beer. You'll get a protein bar. You get a protein sheet. You'll get coconut water. You'll get water, t-shirts. That's all the shit you just get given.
And it's all at places like that. You meet like-minded people as well, don't you?
People come from all over the place to do them. People will fly in. You'll have like veterans doing it. You'll have the first one we ever did was there was a Help for Heroes lot behind us, and there was these 4 dudes, like these 4 jacked guys carrying this guy in a wheelchair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fair play to
But like going up and down hills, going in rivers, climbing over roots and shit. And we were like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, it is incredible. Just there's a different mentality between the Tough Mudder and the Spartan. So I've done the Tough Mudder.
That's more like a fun race.
That's not fun. The Tough Mudder is nasty.
Is it?
Yeah, the obstacles. The Spartan race obstacles will push you, but they're fun obstacles. Like you got the spear throw. You've got there's a kettlebell tied to a rope, and you've got to pull the kettlebell all the way to the top. You've got a rope climb. You've got
monkey bars.
And
there's one I did right at the end, and you had to like the travelator you had in Gladiators.
Yeah.
It was one of those, which was great fun.
That's really fun. You've got to jump over like fire and all that sort of shit.
And then you had to get over the really tall barriers.
Yeah, to climb over that.
Yes.
You've got they've got the horizontal climbing walls, like you have the climbing centres. You've got to do that. You've got to crawl under like mesh netting and stuff like this. The Tough Mudder ones, you'll have all of them, but then they'll put nasty ones in.
It's like an electric shock one, isn't there?
There's Electric Avenue, which is the one right before the ending, which is basically like a scene out of Jackass, where they make a corridor and they hang tasers from it. There's like 50 tasers, and you've got to sprint through it. I remember I got tased in the arse, and my whole right leg just went numb.
Yeah, so you're just on the floor.
I had to drag. Unfortunately, I didn't fall over, because that would have screwed me up way more. But I had to just like dragging this like numb leg. Like it lasts like 30 seconds, but you're still there like, okay, I can't use this now.
Yeah.
But the worst one, there was 2 bad ones. One was they dug this massive trough out of the ground, like 30 feet deep. You had to go up this metal platform like you're going into like an indoor diving pool, and you had to jump and grab this bar and then swing across to the other side. The problem is, after the first like 4 or 5 people on it who would have jumped in, the trough is full of water, so they would have jumped, missed, hit the water, come back up again and jumped, but their hands are wet. So everyone after that is just going to, even if they grab the bar, they're just going to slip straight off. So everyone just falls and just smacks into the water. But the worst one was what they call the Arctic Enema, which was you go up a ramp, you climb up these like these stairs they put there, and there's a slide into a storage container filled with icy water. So big chunks of ice in it. The worst part is, so you have to slide down it, and then you have to swim to the middle. You have to then swim to the bottom, swim along the bottom, because there's a big barrier in the way, underwater, and then come up the other side. So my mate Matt went ahead of me. He did it. Cool. I went down the slide. As soon as I hit the water, my brain just shut off. My body took over and picked me up and threw me out of the tank. Because I don't know how.
That's what I would do.
I constantly had no choice. It was so weird. I had like a disembodied experience where I didn't decide any of this. Yeah. But as soon as that icy water hit me, my body was went nope. It went up and out and go. And I was like my brain came back to me when I was on the other side of it. It was very strange, but my body's just instant reaction, like self-preservation, was nope, absolutely not.
That's why they say like with you're supposed to do cold showers and stuff like that to activate your brain. You get it going. I've tried it so many times, and that's just one thing I can't get with. And the whole point is that you're supposed to control your breathing, aren't you? And that's how you get through it. But I whack it to cold, and it's like, and then like I tense up, and I just can't push myself through it.
How have you done it? Have you done it just as a normal heat and then straight to cold, or have you done a gradation?
I've done the gradation, and that you can kind of work like that, but
it takes like a month.
Yeah, but most of the time, in the mornings, I haven't got time to. Okay, I'm one of these people that hates saying I haven't got time. I don't make the time.
There you go.
There we go.
Good boy.
Correct myself. I don't make the time in the mornings to be able to have the shower that long, or I avoid making the time so I don't have a cold shower. However you like to interpret it.
It's interesting because I'm in the exact same position as you, but it's interesting the things that we choose to do that are difficult. Obviously, there's a certain time restriction on what we can do. Like, no one has time to meditate for an hour, stretch, read, sauna, steam, ice shower,
because
run,
I would do that
weights,
every single day if I could.
and then go to your job. Like, no one can do that.
That's one of the goals.
Oh yeah, if you do that every day, that'd be amazing. But it's interesting things that you and I are big believers in doing the things that are difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting the things that we choose to do, because we're probably thinking from this one, okay, it's difficult, but you're there like, if I do this other difficult thing, that's going to make me money in the future.
Yeah. So if
you're
you
there
give me
like,
time, so then I can have time to do the cold showers.
Maybe, yeah.
It's the old Wim Hof method, isn't it?
Oh, the breathing thing. Yeah, he's a nutcase.
Well, so I don't do it at the moment, but for a good 3 months, I was doing not the ice baths, couldn't get over that, but this was during the same time when I was experimenting with it. Is doing the breath challenge or whatever it was, and it's mental considering I was a smoker at the time. How when he talks to you about it and he says, "Oh, I can hold my breath for 5 minutes," or whatever, it's like there's no way you can do that. Within a couple of days, I think even less. Like, well, the second or third time I did it, I was holding my breath for like 2 minutes, and it was like, it's actually a bit weird. Like, how am I managing this? And because I can't remember exactly how it is, but isn't it like you do 30 seconds of deep breathing, and then you just hold your breath?
I don't know the method, unfortunately.
Oh, I'll try and find it ready for the next one. But it works really well. And I think effectively it's about self-control and like controlling your mind because the first time you do it, you're like, I need to breathe. What's going on here? And then you slowly learn to control your heart rate, because then your heart rate rises. As soon as it starts rising, then of course you need more oxygen. But the whole point is that you maintain your heart rate in order to maximize your oxygen consumption, and therefore you can, your brain controls, you consciously control your heart rate, and it massively helps with your breathing. And it's a bit like meditation. Do you know what I mean? Where you learn to relax yourself in that is a stressful situation, whereas most of the time you meditate, you're in a relaxed situation, sat there not doing anything. But that's how you can control a stressful situation. And it's more applicable to obviously real life situations.
Yeah, it's fascinating just in general about the breeding side of things. There's a gentleman called James Nestor, who's similar to Wim Hof, but he's looked at just breathing patterns with athletes, and he and part of his research team worked out the benefits and the optimal way to breathe when exercising, which is in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And they did it with they tested this on NFL players with different types of breathing. So if you did just like open mouth breathing, for example, just through the nose, and then the in through the nose, out through the mouth. The third one, which is the optimum one, they found that their aerobic capacity was greatly increased, and their recovery time was super quick, like really, really quick. So they could do a really intense training session, and their recovery time back down to baseline was way faster than if they'd just done open mouth breathing or just in through the nose. And they found that they could exercise for longer as well. So the ones who didn't cycle their breathing properly, they would effectively wind themselves quite quickly. Whereas if you're doing they could sort of maintain that pace for a lot longer. And it's fascinating. There's because I gave us a go like a year ago, going up the White Horse Hill in Wantage.
Yeah.
And if you're exercising or doing any form and you're talking, it will wind you because you're expending a lot of energy trying to talk. Whereas I was like, cool, all we're going to do, we're not going to talk for the whole way from the bottom to the top, but we're just going to do this breathing cycle. We did it, we got to the top, and I was like, bar a little elevation in our pulse at the beginning, there was no change in pulse. it was so fascinating. And back down to baseline took like a minute. It was so interesting. Whereas if you're there like, huffing and puffing, your pulse would be like 120, 130, and then you'll be up there for hands on your knees or like lying down trying to get your breath back or whatever. And I was like, this is fascinating with the whole breathing part of it during the exercise. I was like, this is a game changer. I could do this again now.
But yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Like, and when I learned about the breath work from Wim Hof and stuff like that, I noticed that when I was going on runs, because I used to start by like heavy breathing, thinking that was going to help me, but actually it doesn't. It has a negative effect.
Yeah, it wins you.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty quickly on. But then when you just slowly control your breathing and your heart rate, same thing. Control the heart rate, and then it helps. Was it aerobic capacity? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it massively helps with your aerobic capacity, which means obviously you can go for longer and get further.
Well, Hoist Gracie, part of the Gracie family who created Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he wrote a book called Breathe, and his entire method of everything is just breath work. The whole thing is just breathing. And this is like, a little Brazilian guy who would just constantly beat these just jacked mammoth humans just all the time, just from his mastery of his own body.
And it's I don't know if you've noticed this before, when the higher your heart rate, it feels like time goes quicker. Mm-hmm. But the more you can control your breathing and the more you can control your heart rate and keep it low, it feels like time moves a lot slower, which I'm assuming gives you more time, especially if you're fighting and stuff like that, to analyze what's going on in front of you and then react in the right way.
Makes sense. Yeah, the perception will change depending on obviously what's going on here, because everything else is like, because it's pumping more blood and oxygen around your body, so everything's gonna wake up a bit, everything will wake up more, which will past a certain point will start becoming a detriment as opposed to the advantage of what it should be.
Well, it's like I was going to say about adrenaline, but then of course when adrenaline tends to increase your heart rate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it will spike it. Yeah.
But that's a defense mechanism more, isn't it?
Yes. So adrenaline will it will take out your peripheral vision, so it'll give you tunnel vision. It will massively spike your heart rate. It will turn off your digestive system, which is why a lot of people, if they're in a fight or flight system, you'll shit yourself.
Really?
Yeah, because it immediately makes you lighter, because obviously you're getting rid of that, and it turns it off. So if it's like a proper death situation kind of thing, you can end up like shitting yourself a little bit. Like if your body perceives it as a legitimate threat, because it makes you lighter so that you can run or fight better. It raises everything up. It mutes your pain receptors, so if you get hurt, you're not going to feel it until after the fact. So you get this massive spike, but then you get a horrible crash afterwards. Yeah. Whereas like it all comes back, the pain comes back, you get these headaches, your blood sugar's dropped. You get this horrible withdrawals from adrenaline afterwards. Fortunately, they don't last very long, but you do get a crash right afterwards.
No, it's interesting. I guess it probably goes back to the primal days where we're being attacked by lions or tigers and bears or whatever.
It's very important to recognise that response as well, because
and learn to control it.
Learn what it is. Control is a little bit harder to do. I don't know whether it's definitely a case of controlling it, but I don't know whether that means just. I don't think it means fighting it. I think it means just making sure it doesn't come outside of your body, but you just recognise that, okay, I might need to walk it off. Like the phrase "walk it off."
Just be conscious of it, so you can.
Because you get all this adrenaline coming in, it's all this energy in your body, and as we know from science, you can't get rid of energy; you can only change it. So you have to, if you have all this energy and it's unmet, like say you're having in a verbal confrontation, you're physically perfectly safe, but because of verbal, it being like a raised voice, be it in speed or pitch or whatever, it's very confrontational, and you're like, well, if this is a loud noise, it could escalate to physical, even though it's like in a work setting, so that's never going to happen. But your body still perceives it as a physical threat, so you need to find an outlet for all of that energy that suddenly your body has just dumped onto you. Otherwise, you get this horrible crash. So you still get the crash after you use the energy, but it mitigates it because it's been used on something.
And is it a bit? Would that be similar to in Kung Fu how they do?
Kung Fu.
No, the reason I switched to that is because they do all like the effectively like yoga.
Oh, you mean Tai Chi?
Is it Tai Chi?
Tai Chi, all the slow movements. Yes, Tai Chi. Yeah.
Is it Tai Chi? And would that tie into similar to the Wim Hof method, like controlling yourself, controlling your breath, controlling your body?
Depends on the version of Tai Chi. Tai Chi mostly is a form of like physical meditation because it's very slow and controlled, and it's all about balance. Like the Tai Chi symbol is the yin yang.
So is it a bit like yoga then?
Yes, but it's a martial art. So you've got two main versions of Tai Chi, which is the yin yang, which is the symbol of it. It's all about balance, which is the physical representation of Taoism, is the whole name of it. And the slow one is about the moves and the breathing and the control and the balance. So every move in it is perfectly is an attack and a defense at the same time. So each punch is also a block, each kick is also an avoidant, and so on and so on. Then you've got the combat version of it, which is basically just the same thing sped up, so you can actually fight someone with that stuff. But the predominant use of it is as a physical meditation. So it's about, as you say, comes back to the breathing. It's all about control and balance and breathing. That's the main three things from it.
Interesting. I might have to give that a go.
It's cool. It's very cool. It's unusual to find because it's not that very sexy. It's more used. It's more popular with like older people because it's very, very low impact.
Yeah.
It's just very gentle. Keeps everything moving. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's one thing I do want to get into. Some type of martial art.
Got loads to choose from.
And so what's your experience in those?
Started when I was 8. Judo first and foremost. And then jiu-jitsu I got into when I was about 12, 13. So those are the bedrocks of mine. And then I've dabbled in other bits since then. Did capoeira for about a year.
Capoeira, what's that?
Capoeira is the Brazilian street fighting, which is
blocking knives and all sorts.
No. It's all no. That was in jiu-jitsu. The capoeira is all about like kicks. So it was a street fighting design style created hidden in a dance by the Brazilians when the Portuguese oppressors turned up. So this is hundreds of years ago. They hid it in a dance so they could learn how to fight without them knowing they were learning how to fight. So it's all like this. You've got a basic movement which is called the jinga, which is basically you step to like one side with the leg back and then you repeat the other way. And then each turn you can either put like a kick into it or a punch or whatever. And it's the one with all the flips and the handsprings and the back flips and the... Like, I never got to that stage, but like my instructor was like a no-handed backflip kind of fucker, and you're there just like,
really,
yeah,
Jesus,
or no-handed cartwheels and shit. And you're like, all right, but the leg and the lower back workout you get from it is nuts.
Yeah, I bet,
because it's all like upright to then down your haunches, but like in a deep lunge, and then up and then repeat and go the other way, and then turn a spinning kick into that, and then a block and a step back and a cartwheel and all that sort of shit. It's really cool, but it's a hell of a workout.
Well, that's what I mean. It's why I would like to do that as well, because it's you get two things out of it, don't you? So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're learning a martial art for defense and confidence and all that type of stuff. But then obviously you get a workout as well.
Yeah, there's loads, mate. I mean, judo was my bedrock, and then jiu-jitsu is like one of, if not the best, because it combines almost everything.
Is that all like groundwork as well?
50% groundwork, 50%. Well, actually, no, not 50%. So you get groundwork, so all the grappling side of it, and then the throws from judo. But you then have the strikes on the ground, the strangles, the arm breaks, the leg cranks, the neck cranks. You then have striking as well. So you have the stand-up part of it. So you have sparring. So it basically covers pretty much everything bar weapons, which then you have like kendo, aikido, that kind of shit.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga is a lot like judo, but there's a lot like jiu-jitsu rather, but there's no throws.
No throws.
Yeah, it's based as it's described. It's basically 100 ways to rip someone's nuts off.
Yeah,
is how it's described.
Yeah. Then that's more for like street fighting type things, isn't it?
Yeah, Krav Maga is Israeli martial art created by Mossad. Yeah.
Oh, so they created it.
Yeah, so it's fairly new in the martial arts scheme of things.
There must be some tough motherfuckers. I want to mess with the Israelis.
Yeah, Mossad is pretty scary. Also, the fact that I think Israel has compulsory service, I believe.
Do they?
Yeah, it's 2 years.
I mean, growing up, I didn't really agree with the compulsory service type thing, but the more and more we see society these days, I think it's required. I think it's got to be.
There's always a back and forth in it. My friend who's in the army...
Teaches discipline.
My friend who's in the army doesn't think it should be. He says some people should not be taught this. Because you're giving the people the tools that you shouldn't be giving them. Like, some people should not have these tools.
Well, not necessarily the fighting aspect, but more like the getting up early, the regimented, being on time, don't talk out to superiors, etc., etc. You know, you've got the hierarchy, which I know hierarchies have become a swear word these days, haven't they? But
we're not going to participate in that nonsense.
No, I won't be doing that.
No.
But with, you know, they're required for a society, and you know, a large group of people, which the whole world basically is now. Wherever you go, there's, you know, millions of people. It's required for. I don't want to use the word control because I hate government control. Order, exactly. Yeah, you know, we need order for anything to run. You know, the train systems, the buses, the fire brigade, any type of business, any type of thing you really do in your life, you need some type of order. You know, if your room's a mess, I think we discussed it before. If you're trying to find something and everything's in order, you know it's over there. Bam, you'll get it within 10 seconds. But if you're in a room and everything's all in one pile, good luck finding that, you know, quickly when you need it. I'm thinking that was my point. I just think it's, you know, there should be certain levels. And you know, if you show certain attributes that could have a negative consequence, if you knew the Krav Maga aspect, then maybe you'd get, you know, they'd probably think, we won't put you into that one. But the ones that could use and have the right attitude for it, then get sort of progressed up.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely an argument for that. I think my friend's point was that you have to be in a certain physical condition to be selected into the army.
But if everybody was from a young age, like, I'm not saying primary school, but I do think secondary school, you know, not the hardcore stuff, but do you know what I mean, like, start to get introduced to it, and then up until 20, not like it's your whole life, but couple of days a week, or, you know, once a week or something, you should go there just to learn a bit of discipline.
The discipline aspect of it can never be underrated. We'd have to manufacture a necessity for it, because Israel makes sense for them to have it because of their history. Like, they instilled
ongoing.
Ongoing. They instilled it because of the whole Palestine thing, and then equally from the Nazis and stuff like that. So that makes sense from that perspective. Or you have it with South Korea, same thing. I don't think you have it in France anymore.
Well, I mean, I can imagine we used to have it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. I think, my friend's point, I think he was just saying that by people in general being in better shape, you are, by very nature, physically more dangerous. And he was like, if you're not given the right mentality to go with that, then that's a problem.
Yes. Having said that, as we've discussed with, you know, depression and all that type of stuff, how exercise massively helps with that, being disciplined, learning good values, which you would learn from doing all those things, would it not avoid a lot of the pitfalls in the point he was making?
One would think. I mean, I'm in.
And then again, if everybody is trained in that manner, then the couple of people that go off the tangent or whatever, they're not that dangerous to them, because everybody is trained in the same way.
I'm in agreement with you. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and trying to argue from his perspective, which I didn't fully get, and obviously still don't. But yeah, I mean, it's like the mentality of, if there's a kid who's bullying someone or a kid who's being bullied, the answer to both of those is teach them to fight.
Yeah.
Teach both of them to fight, because then it stops the bullying.
Well, and of course, with most of martial arts, even if it's an underlying, unspoken aspect of it, is you're going to learn these things. However, you don't use them. Like, I remember when I haven't done lots of it, so I'm not igniting like I have. But when I used to go to MMA classes and stuff like that, they would say at the beginning, "We're teaching these things, but you're not allowed to use them outside of the gym."
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you're in danger or something like that, you're gonna use them.
Yeah.
But the whole point was that you don't use it on anyone unless you, for safety reasons, have to.
Yeah, it's the tool. It's better to have the tool and not need it than need it and not have it.
Well, it's the old, I don't know where this comes from, it's probably an old Chinese proverb where you're better off to be a
warrior.
Would you rather be a warrior in a garden or a gardener in a war?
Yeah, very true.
You're going to be the warrior, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not even a question. Yeah, it is very true. I mean, I am massively thankful to my parents for putting me in that from such a young age, because there was countless days I did not want to do it, countless days that I did not enjoy it, and those were days that I was bad at it. But overall, the benefits for it completely outweigh the negatives, and just the general outlook in general. Like, every credit I have for myself is to them for doing it.
And again, it will have helped with the transferable skills, i.e. discipline, respect, all of those which you can take into every aspect, into everything you do.
I think the respect is a huge point, because my instructors became like surrogate fathers, but it drilled into you discipline and respect to your elders and your mentors, and
which I hate to sort of go down this road because it makes me sound like an old person, but it's different these days, isn't it? Like, teachers can't discipline kids in schools, and it's no wonder they're fucking about in societies like it is.
With the kids up to a certain age, they're not humans, they're animals.
Yeah.
Until they get to a certain age, then they're humans, and you have to treat them like animals.
Yeah, it's not till they become conscious at
if you're
17, 18.
If you're soft on a dog, that's going to be a misbehaving dog.
Yeah.
That dog needs boundaries, it needs punishment, it needs discipline, and it needs structure. If you're soft on a dog, that's a hard to control dog. That's going to act out, and it's going to get itself hurt, and it's going to hurt others. Yeah,
and humans are the same. You know, they
exactly
say you can't teach a old dog new tricks. Well, you try and teach discipline to a 20, 25-year-old.
Oh, yeah, you're
too late.
Yeah, you're fucked. Obviously, it's slightly different because if a human has somehow reached that point and is like, oh shit, something's wrong.
They often, well, I think it's probably less often than we would hope or would like. You're going to become conscious and make the conscious decision within yourself to change that. But again, I can imagine there's a massive percentage that never even get to that point.
It takes a unique person to recognise them about themselves. That's a rarity. And they have to want it. You can't want it for them more than they do.
Yeah, you can only show people the door, can't you?
Well, you can only, and you figure that out the hard way. If you're more invested in something than someone else is, it's not going to last. It's not going to work.
No. Yeah, you're going to help someone so much before you give up, basically.
Yeah, because it's just not going to work for a change in their life unless you were to physically control every aspect of them and work them like a puppet. It's not going to stick. It's not even going to take to begin with.
Yeah, and it's no benefit to them if they're not really learning it, is it?
Exactly.
Like, if they're not getting to a point where they can consciously decide, right, this is actually good for me, then you're just beating your head against a brick wall, and they're just resenting the fact that you're trying to help them.
Well, they won't even perceive it as help. They'll see it as sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong, or getting involved in that's not theirs.
Madness. But what books are we going to be reading next then, Matimus? Have you got any on the horizon? I'm going to take that Sapiens book. I need to read that one.
Oh, please do, mate. I am
We've
actually
discussed it a number of times.
I am actually going to be rereading Jocko Willink's Discipline Equals Freedom.
Is that one in there as well?
Nope, I've already taken it home. So that's next on my list because that is I read it before. It's one of the things I need to read it again. Got to read it once a year, kind of thing.
Yeah, there are many books, and I think I'm going to read Think and Grow Rich again.
Mm.
That's obviously had a profound impact on my life, and I'm sure on yours and anybody who reads it, really. But it's always good to recap.
Napoleon Hill?
Yes.
What's the There's a Felix Dennis one, which is a very similar title. I think it might just be called How to Get Rich. That's very entertaining to read that. That's one I recommend for you, mate. It's Felix Dennis.
You get that one down.
Yeah, he died a while back, but he's a gentleman who I think was at the boom of the magazine.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He was.
What's it called, Dennis?
Felix Dennis is the gentleman. I think it's called How to Get Rich. But his philosophies in general were fascinating because he was basically saying how, because he didn't want to just be comfortable, he wanted to be like super ultra mega rich, and he said you have to.
That's where I'm at.
He said if that's the mentality you have to want it more than you want to breathe, than you want to, because you're gonna lose your family, you're gonna lose your friends.
And I think that's why, when going back to the previous point, I neglected pretty much everything because I was so focused on getting to that level.
Mm.
And I still am. I want to get there, but I don't want to do it at the expense of losing my friends and family.
And you can,
because otherwise you'll what's the point? I asked myself the question one day. It's like, what's the point of me having a ridiculous amount of wealth, but no one to enjoy it with?
Precisely.
It'd be completely pointless. Because I'm not necessarily interested in it, other than the freedom aspects. I'm not really interested in the material things. Don't get me wrong, they're nice to have, and it's nice to have nice clothes and drive nice cars and nice houses. I don't really get masses of fulfillment from it, other than the security and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you haven't got anyone to enjoy those things with, a family, children or anything like that, what's the point?
Well, I think for what I took from it is it was a lesson in what I didn't want to do and what I didn't want to sacrifice, because it's the same for yourself. Obviously, the point we're already like-minded, but for anyone else that's listening, I would highly recommend either listening to it or reading it. The Audible book is actually very entertaining because the author's got a great voice on him. It's quite funny. But at the very least, it's the lessons to avoid, or the lessons you can learn without suffering them the hard way like he did. But it's absolutely worth devouring.
I've got that one done. I'll get it on the Audible.
Absolutely, mate.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
I think it's time.
Sounds good to me, buddy. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. As always, I've been Matt at the Harpe, and he's been Max Smith. Next week, we're going to switch. So I'm going to be Max, he's going to be Matt. See if you noticed.
Yeah.
I'm
not
always,
sure I'll have as good a tan, though, unfortunately. But see if you do notice, yeah.
That's all right, I'll shave my beard.
Blonde.
Yeah, I can dye it blonde. That's all right, I'll go to Max, he'll do it for me.
Yeah.
I'll go, as always, guys, remember to like and subscribe. We'll put the link in the bottom for Bjorn Lomberg. For everyone, I'll do it for Williamson's and Rogan's because they're both very good. I'll put them in the description. Until next time.
Brilliant.
Much
Take
love.
care, guys.